This is your daily market review for Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. Let's go. Hey everyone, this is my channel to help investors and traders develop a probability-based mindset to succeed. Also try and keep friends informed of what's going on in the markets and the economy, and also a little real estate content as well. This is Dan Max at eXp Realty, aka the Trading Agent, your daily market review for Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. Hopefully you're doing well. Not surprised by the bounce today, as we've talked about the CPI data as we expected. Based on what we were seeing and what was going on, was going to come in lower. We figured the reaction possibly would be up. We're in the oversold position going into an FOMC meeting, and obviously a quad witching OPEX with the most amount of puts on record, with the IWM never being down 7 straight weeks in a row. I mean, the overwhelming evidence of a bounce by, again, the largest number of put positions ever put out on the market. Again, sentiment oversold, the fear and greed. It's a recipe for a bounce. Now, a lot of people, again, I've been there where you feel like, all right, it's only going to go in one direction. Oh man, the time is now. The news is really getting real hot and heavy. It feels like it's time for this thing to just blow open, and it's like, been there. Tops and bottoms feel like that, and that's where I think we're at. And I don't know how to quantitate that, because I think a lot of people are trying to find evidence of what that looks like within parts of the market. And again, it's never easy to just, know that within a trend that there's going to be counter moves. And so that's what we want to talk about tonight. Again, I think a lot of folks in general, whether you love or hate Trump, whether you love or hate what's going on in the world, again, we're here to make money. Keep it simple. You got to take the emotions out of it, because again, we've all been there where we've thought we could only go higher, we could only go lower. And when the sentiment gets that strong, it's usually when the markets really get humbling us. Doing this for 25 years, it's like, how many times do I need to get humbled? It seems pretty regularly, but you still learn from it each and every time. And hopefully the humbling costs less and less. So again, if you're new to the channel, check out the Discord room, links in the description below. After hours, looks like the CEO for Intel is out the door. This was up from $20, around $23. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Again, if you're looking to grow, looking to invest more into yourself, need some help, check out the Calendly link. 30 minutes, let's talk, whether it's trading, investing, looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. You get 2 agents for the price of 1. Again, I will personally take it personal if you don't decide to reach out, because again, I can contact you with an agent, any great agent in the country, in your area, and you get 2 for 1. Also follow, subscribe on the Twitter, posting trades, ideas, and thoughts. Also on the YouTube, again, 52 videos on education. I know it's a lot, but again, if you really want to master the markets, there's a lot to learn. Also, if you appreciate what's going on here, hit the thanks button. I appreciate any likes, subscribes, hearts, I guess is another one, comments, anything to keep, just anything to show appreciation, because again, it's not always necessarily monetarily. Again, the goal is to everybody who's involved in this channel to make money, but that's what we do. So again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Always here to help. Again, check out thetradingagent.com. Also more resources, insights, thoughts, things to learn. So tons of resources too. Again, built this for you guys, recommended reading, all sorts of fun stuff. So anyway, let's get into it. So we know the odds of a rate cut next week. You're going to hear rumors. Considering inflation came down, it's almost zero. So don't really buy that. Again, you're going to hear people screaming. I mean, I started posting, people were doing this and retweeting it. What was it? Is it retweet replies? I can't remember, but people just posting this stuff about how they thought, oh boy, here we go again. I don't even know how to find it. Oh, here you go. True inflation is this, and it's time to cut. Okay, gotcha. It ain't happening the next meeting. Just keep that in mind. Oils, we talked about this area down here. Whether people believe it or not, it's a very strong area. Zoom out to almost 2015, if I remember correctly. This area has mattered. And you probably go back even further if you really want to get nutty about it. But over the last 10 years, essentially, this area matters. So in the respect of such, keep an eye on it. Oh, sorry, need to get some Bitcoin in here. BTC. Again, we've talked about the choppiness, the action, right? Do you want to go long? Do you want to go short? Again, we talked about this being a reference near term, but you're really in between 2 major spots, in my opinion. So you got to be careful. Again, you need to break over this low 90s, or you at some point will retest the low 70s. This is just how it goes. You're in a chop pattern. Not saying that we can't go to new highs or you're going to get crushed. Again, trade what happens. Go with the flow. Try to anticipate it. If you want to go long here, great, keep an eye on it. Again, I personally don't have like a confidence factor in it because I do recognize right now it's in between zones. And when things are in between zones, I typically just lay off and wait. I let trades come to me. Natural gas, thank God, pulling back a little bit. Expected this at some point. Again, this is what we talked about, taking profits in the KOLD and UNG, and it just kind of is what it is. And it's not to say that this stuff is baked and gone and done. It's just, it makes sense, right? If there's going to be some sort of truce, we'll see what happens with natural gas prices. Again, I think the oil price is undervalued, even though they have seen a supply increase. We got a lot of things going on that dynamics I think will support oil. And even at worst, I don't care so much about the oil as much as the companies invest who drill, who are in oil services, because I think they're trading at massive discounts. And the action is confirming such in the market. So dollar, as we talked about, definitely gotten smashed. All right. Seems to be holding up at the lows near term. Again, you go down, expect some counter move, chop, chop, chop. TLT said, watch this area. I mean, after today's action, I don't really know if there's much to confirm bullish or bearish, right? Like if you want to take stabs, it makes sense here with tight stops. Today's action, really not much of a clue, in my opinion. Keep an eye on it. VIX, talked about this. It looked like a bull trap on the VIVIX, and we said this looked like a 2-day range. And here you go. Come on down, right? VIVIX, same. Like that's what we talked about. It looked like a bull trap, and people are like, okay. And then here it is. Double bar to remind them, like, keep an eye on it. And then boom, here we go. Come on down. A lot of people, again, I think get very emotional about the positions they have. And it's like, this is where it tells you you're probably going to have to manage it right now. Now, again, not to say that, again, the market, I personally thought about, like, I thought this was a topping mechanism. Is you have, if you're going to cut spending, you're going to cut jobs, you're going to cut basically what the GDP was based upon over the last 4 years and change. And then also, too, you're going to have to not spend money on war. There's going to be a reset in the economy. I think there's going to be deflation. I think you're going to see lower rates in time, which will benefit the economy, but it just, here you go. Keep an eye on it. SPY near term, again, I see a higher low here. I see we closed. I mean, again, it's red, not the strongest candle, but this would make sense. If we're about to chop bottom into a pop going into the FOMC meeting, then it makes sense. And here's where it is. Like, you want to be bearish, go right ahead. Again, no one's saying that you can't be for the long term, near term, whatever. You just need to see lower lows. And this is where, again, the evidence gets a little more obvious here. Like the QQQ, which has led down, is bouncing first. You hit the 0.618, that's a strong close. And you filled the gap and closed the high. Because here's what the problem is. If you close the gap and then we close lower, you got issues. But we close the gap and then close higher. IWM looks like it's bottoming. Again, looks like a little left-right combo. I know the close isn't great, but keep an eye on it. If you do a Gartley pattern completed move here, you've got a symmetrical near-term bottom of an extension of a leg. So again, I'm not much into wave theories, but I do trust Gartley patterns. And it's like, yeah, you've now projected down about as much as it can near term. Same thing, DIA back at the trend line. Not as concerned about them, but keep an eye on it. Gold, does it look like going to break out? This is where I think you've got to be careful. You're at the monthly upside target, but the second quarter is typically seasonally weak for metals. I mean, if you're going to get a Ukraine ceasefire, again, I feel like you're right in this weird position where it's not going to, I don't think you'll get the follow through, if that makes sense. Silver trying to break out, looks good. Will we get it? I mean, this is where I'd say, like, do I trust it? Again, if this was, say, like July or, say, September or, say, December bottoming, yeah, but near term, it's tough to know. It's tough to know. GDX, and again, that's where, again, you trade it, manage it, do what you got. No one knows for certain. GDX, again, it could be like a little cup and handle here, right? GDXJ. Same kind of thing, chopping up against the highs. Want to see some follow through. Keep an eye on it, right? AEM, holding up at the highs. Cool, let's see what happens here. I mean, if it breaks out, miners lead, great. AG, this was another one, got a huge pop yesterday, up 11%. Cool, we talked about there's huge volume down here. It's like look at this, compared to like, just zoom out, like nobody close, nobody at all. Like you haven't seen volume this consistently high since never. So keep an eye on it. Again, somebody's doing something down there. And again, I'm not saying go ahead and just sell all your sellers, but I think manage them. I mean, I think the miners as a whole have the best long-term, like not best, but they have a really good upside long-term. But just again, if market volatility sticks around, it's not going to be easy. Newmont seems to be holding the 50-day pass, seems to be staging. right around the breakout. So we'll see. Again, if they break out, cool. But I'm just more concerned they could do some shit like McDonald's. And I, again, not to jump around, but this is what it looked like. Oh, here we go. And then give it all back. We've seen that same thing with Starbucks. Like, that's been a reoccurring theme here with weaker markets, right? Again, you get traps. Taiwan Semi, speaking of traps, we said 2-day range, gaps up, perfect. Expected some up. Micron, I said if you want to trade the range lows, there's a trade here. Perfect, gap up, there it goes. AMD, even as much as I think this stock sucks, I'm like, why would you short it down here? It's due to bounce. Congrats. NVIDIA, as much as I think it's the short of 2025, said watch the 0.618. Look what it did today. It gapped up. Now, where does it go? Could it go to channel high or mid-channel? Again, at this point, I don't think I'd be sitting here going, well, the market looks like shit, because again, the more deeper we go into it, the more it's showing actually relative strength, even though the indexes are weak or perceived to be weak. So you got to be careful. SMCI, we talked about this holding the 50-100 day. Keep an eye on it. Intel, again, after hours, said if you want to trade the range lows, the backside of the trend line, congrats. Somebody knows something. Adobe, this is an interesting reaction, right, to its earnings. Popped right back. Not much. Apple said, watch today, the range lows. Watch for the gap fill. You got it. You close right above it. All right, keep an eye on it. Just, again, you want a tradable spot. There it is. You want to go long for a bounce, even if it's just 10 points, whatever. It's a tradable spot. I think that you can hold more than just one day. Amazon, here we go. Talked about breaking the 200-day, retesting some ranges, and now you're at the 200-day. Again, all these, again, when you break, when the trend is down, at some point the 20-day becomes the first test. It just seems to be, and again, it's not always, but it's a high probability. Medicine, I think we're like talking about these are oversold. Here you go. Blue zone, gaps up. Watch what happens. CRM. Same kind of thing, right? Oversold due to bounce, and you get the gap up. The gap ups, right? Don't see many of them until you start maybe potentially counter moving. This makes sense. Again, I think a lot of people get wrapped around the axle of whatever data they really want to interpret, where it's like, man, just look at the charts and the repeating patterns. It doesn't have to be that hard. And again, you're still going to lose. It's a probability-based game. You can get pocket aces and still be wrong. Google, same kind of thing. We like this area. You see the recurring theme here. Microsoft, like this area down here, right? It makes sense. Oversold. Keep an eye on it, Captain. NDAQ, talked about this one being like, a precursor to weakness. Bam! But now we're at the 200-day. Should we bounce? We'll see. MicroStrategy, you drop down to the 200-day. You see what's going on here? It's like a recurring theme where everything's bouncing and going to certain support levels. And again, this is where I don't understand, where people have to this is where you can take the emotions out of it. And you go, I'm not a bull or a bear. I'm just trying to do what the damn market's doing. And that's the Livermore key here. Again, leave a comment below if you've read Reminiscence of a Stopper. The goal is to always be neutral and be evidence-based. Because again, emotions are what screw people over. Not to say that MicroStrategy can't go lower, but why would you anticipate it to crash if it seems to hold the 200-day? Netflix, this thing goes from 1,000, whatever, 50, 60, pulling back. Okay. Getting a little bounce. Roblox, same thing. They've been absolutely throttled. Right? Okay, here you go. Bouncing back, Pan W. Do you see the constant here? You're hitting in either ranges, filling gaps, doing certain shit, and bouncing. Tesla, we talked about this one a big time. Like, if you just waited for 217. Again, I tried to get in early at some other spots. You know what? Lose a couple dollars here. I cumulatively lost about $13 a share. It's like, that's not that much. Again, considering I wasn't going nuts when I start trying to layer into a trade, and if I get stopped out on the first layer, it doesn't hurt. Well, here's was very obvious. Man, at some point, 17 was the gift. 270 filling the gap. Okay, you can go pretty large there. Sold some on the pop this morning as we got up into this top of the range, almost the candle from which it came from. Now be looking for weakness to add. And again, it's very easy to trade this if you, again, wait for levels and just anticipate. Sometimes with higher VIX, you will go below or above those particular spots. You just got to be careful. You can't just sit here and go, I know what's going to happen always, because we all get humbled. Humble pie, man. It doesn't taste good. Insight, we talked about waiting for this to pull back. If you want to take some stabs, watch it. HIMS. Again, another one said, watch the low 30s. Seems to be trying to find a bottom. Keep it simple, stupid. Palantir. Breaks down, comes right back. Things you wouldn't see if the market was about to smash down, in my opinion. BABA seems to be holding high and tight. Again, keep an eye on it. Coin. This one's interesting, right? It broke the trend line. Now it's back under it, like the primary trend. Keep an eye on it. Could it be a chop bottom bounce? I mean, even if it's just a $10 bounce, I don't know. McDonald's, again, things you don't see if the market was ultimately bullish. You break out and you give it up. But look where we bounced. 50 and 100 day. This is why you watch the recaps. DKNG got knocked, had a short, got stopped out of the leftovers, ran up, and look at this thing. But now we're oversold. So does it need to chop around? Again, you're basically holding reference bottoms. Again, the best way to trap bulls and bears is to confuse both parties. Do y'all get that? And that's where you have to be on red alert, and you can't just assume one is going to be right. You got to every day review the evidence, not just look at the market right now and go, this is what it is. No, again, because it changes. The evidence, that's why when it's static, it's the easiest to look at. Airbnb, same thing, oversold. Costco, talked about this one, right? Gap down. Now you're at the trend line, 2-day range. Is the 200-day possible? Yeah. Could you trade it from here? Yeah, I mean, both are oversold. Play it how you must. Starbucks, we talked about this was a great short. Okay, and now you're starting to get a little longer wick here, a little oversold. Makes sense. FedEx, we talked about like this low 240s. Look at the wick in the doji today. Okay, keep an eye on it. Caterpillar, like this one has been absolutely throttled from the 400 and whatever, 25 plus 20 area. Here you go. This thing should be getting smashed. And we talked about if you looked at the actual intraday action, there's a little bit of a head and shoulders here, and you can use the 336 level. Congrats. Deer, right? Holding the 50-day. Nucor, I mean, this thing got slammed 3 days ago. Here we go. Holding range lows, making higher lows. X seems to be building, right? Pretty strongly from 35. I mean, things you wouldn't say if the market's about to crash, in my opinion. Or not crash, but pull back harder. I mean, you would see this stuff barely bouncing, potentially. Or you wouldn't see, like, the overall evidence starting to crest up. Like, the tide is coming in for bulls and out for bears. And again, is it going to be a huge wave? It might not be. That's the point here, is that you have to manage your position. Because if you don't take profits, your profits can get taken. And if you're wrong, we're wrong, whatever, everybody's going to be wrong, and you don't ever take any profits, it hurts. Vale, watching that 50-day arrow. Again, this feels like, again, holding up pretty damn well. CCJ, we said constantly, watch the 40 area. I'd like to see it lower, but seems to be holding it. I can't wish it to go lower. It just is what it is. It does what it does. CF, we talked about the ag names starting to bounce. Mosaic, talked about the huge volume on this starting to bounce, right? NTR, range lows due to bounce. Does this make sense? Like, again, you can't always be bullish and bearish. And the hardest thing for bears is to realize when to take your foot off the gas. Because again, things more likely go up, short covering triggers up moves. And bearishness, again, if you believe ultimately the market's going to go higher, it's a trade. You can't marry the thesis. And again, not saying we can't go lower. You just have to, like, okay, let's see what happens here. Aaron, again, looking to bounce. Again, I like commodities. I think ultimately money is not necessarily going to run back into tech hard. It's going to come back into commodities. Talked about even the XLF, like looking for a near-term bottom. Yes, please. Right? Here you go. Again, people are like, what are you doing with JP Morgan? All right, took off half the puts, and let's see what happens here. Crash is great, but we're at the 200-day. I'm not going to sit here and put my thumb up my ass and go, well, it goes from 280 down to 226 or whatever, 227, and pretend that it's just going to go in a straight line. Great. I hope it does. I kept some on, but I'm not going to just assume it can't bounce. Morgan Stanley, again, look at these names. They're starting to look a little bouncy, a little higher low at the 200-day. Bank of America, right? Multi 3-day range, trade against it. Goldman Sachs drops down, right? Down to the 200-day, making higher lows. I mean, these are all tradable action spots. KRE, right? Same thing. Higher low fills the gap today. Do you see my point here? Like, why would you go all in shorting near the bottom? Like, it's like buying at the highs. Like, not smart. XBI, we talk about a risk on name, looks like it wants to bounce. X Jets, Benny and the Jets. Looks a little oversold. I mean, again, some sectors might not bounce. I don't know. I'm not really going to depend it on the airlines. But again, it's a great trade if you shorted it. We'll see what happens. Housing, yeah, filling the gap, chopping around. But it's not making new lows. So, again, it's just worth watching. Everyone who's selling you certainty, you got to run the hell away. There's no certainty. Even like when you get, again, this is what's so hard about when I see people puts and skews and all this stuff within like market internals. You're getting the information from the broker. Do you think they can manipulate the information? You never know. Who's double checking it? That's what I've always wondered and seen myself also get busted and in trouble with certain believing it. Like, oh, I thought it was this. And it's like, something was wrong there. Something was fishy. But you don't really know because no one can double check them. Who actually audits the puts and calls and the actual like lineup of the action confirming what they post and sell data to? I don't know. Anyone know? SEC? Ha! Government agency? Ha! Okay, good luck. SAN, again, we talked about it bouncing. Look at it. Sedge, blah, 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 blah. Not these names, don't really care. Again, I like First Solar here. I think it makes sense. Talked about this bottoming first. HYG, like, you got to be out of your mind about corporate debt for the long term. But again, here you go. You drop down to 200-day. You're back at a spot that could bounce. Keep an eye on it. Oil, as we talked about, I feel like it's going higher. The evidence feels like it's building to go higher. Now, how high? I'm not going to sit here and go, how high? I don't know. But I know there's a bounce there, and I'll trade it. We'll see, and the evidence can change. UNG, we talked about being up high. KOLD, like, this is a great trade, 80 down to whatever, 16 or 17 it got to. Okay, let it bounce. And again, it's a decaying asset, so it's not going to bounce as strong. But let's see what happens. XOP, again, people are like, how's your guts trade doing? Yeah, great, looking good. Making higher highs and higher lows. Again, if the market's about to pound down, why is oil and gas rising? We'll see what happens here near term. Not saying that it can't go lower, but just it feels like it's bouncing. CVE, here's another one. Nice. Materials seem to be bouncing. Everything we talked about where new money leaves where it should go. Commodities, here you go. Valero, range lows. MPC, bouncing, right? Range lows. Keep an eye on it. ExxonMobil, like you thought this thing would be down, right? The last couple of days. No, it's up off the lows from 105. That's pretty strong. We'll see what happens. BP, you could have bought this thing. BP, right? At 31, it seems to be building. Keep an eye on it, right? Occidental, talked about buying this at the 44 level. Okay, see what happens here. Makes sense. Again, you can do this with all tight stops. And again, it's so simple. Do not overthink it. EQT holding up pretty high. Again, folks who played that upside and now just took their profits. I mean, it makes sense. Like, you can't go long and short forever, especially after big moves. Last but not least, Flex LNG, same kind of thing, right? I believe in natural gas exporting. We're near the range lows with 11% dividend. Hopefully this all makes sense. Again, I'm not trying to project that I know anything for certain, but this is why we review the charts. And if the charts say certain things and we try to keep a clear mind and we know that whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and sometimes you don't know the reason, the catalyst for up or down until after, that you have to anticipate moves. This stuff is incredibly difficult at times because it has to be from a probability-based mindset. Again, if you get emotional and you don't like this person and you don't like that and you now are clouding your judgment thinking that it only is based off what you feel. And the market doesn't give a shit about your feelings. Until you learn that lesson over and over, you learn it. And again, it's a lesson I had to learn over and over. It's very frustrating and tough at times. I get it. All right, here to help. Appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful evening. Talk to you soon. Hey, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, stop by the Discord room. A link is in the description below. Also, if you'd like to help support more free content, the PayPal link is in the description as well. I appreciate your continued support of the channel.